the discriminant. So what I want you to do is to pay close attention to the terms underneath the square root sign in each of these quadratic equations. So for example, if we were to plug the quadratic equation for, or if we were to plug the values for 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 into the quadratic formula, we would get x is equal to negative b, so it'd be negative 9, plus or minus the square root of 9 squared minus 4 times a times c. So all divided by 2a. So that would be negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 plus 40, all of which is over 2a. And what we would see is that we'd get negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 121 over 2, oh whoops, why did I write 2a? I should just write 2 times a is 4. And what we see is that we are going to get two solutions to this equation because we have 9 plus or minus some value, in this case 9 plus or minus 11 divided by 4. But we get two solutions because we're adding and subtracting a number. There's two possible solutions, the positive solution or the negative solution. Now let me show you another example here. Negative x is equal to, or sorry, x is equal to negative 20 is positive 20, plus or minus the square root of 20 squared, minus 4 times ac would be 4 times 25, all of which is divided by 2a would be 2 times 4 is 8. And let's go ahead and start simplifying this expression. So I have 20 plus or minus the square root of 20 squared is 400 minus 400. 16 times 25 is 400, all of which is over 8. So this actually looks like 20 plus or minus 0 divided by 8. Well, if I add 0 or take away 0, those are actually equivalent expressions. 20 plus 0 divided by 8 is the same as 20 minus 0 divided by 8. So in this case, I only get one solution because of this plus or minus 0. So because underneath the square root sign, the net value was equal to 0, I only got one solution to the quadratic equation. And the last example I want to show you is x equals, so we're going to plug these into the quadratic equation, so that would be minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4ac, so that would be 4 times 3 times 9, all of which is over 4a, or sorry, 2a, which would be 2 times 3 is 6. And simplifying this, I get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4, 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 3 times 9 is 108, divided by 6. And again, simplifying this, we'd have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 108 is negative 104. And as you know, we cannot have the square root of a negative number, which means if our solution has a square root of a negative number, there are zero real solutions, at least as far as we're concerned, to this quadratic equation. So the value that ends up underneath that square root sign tells us about the nature of our quadratic equation and how many solutions we can expect to have. It's for this reason that we call the terms underneath the square root sign the discriminant of the quadratic equation, or the quadratic formula, I should say. So the discriminant, which I often just abbreviate to discrim, is equal to what's underneath the square root sign is b squared minus 4ac. If this value is greater than 0, or in other words positive, we get two solutions. If this value is less than, or I should say, if this value is equal to 0, then we get one solution. And if this value is less than 0 or negative, well, you can't take the square root of a negative number, so there are 0 solutions to the quadratic equation. In this example, all we're asked to do is to determine the number of solutions to each quadratic equation. So that's what we'll do. So to do that, we're going to calculate the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. And all you have to do is remember, you don't have to have anything special memorized. You just have to remember that this is the thing underneath the square root in the quadratic equation. So you don't have to have a special formula memorized. You just have to look to the quadratic equation and find the terms underneath the square root symbol. And so b squared minus 4ac, that would be 7 squared minus 4 times a is 3 and c is negative 9. So that would be 49 plus 4 times 3 times 9 is 108. And 49 plus 108, I can do this in my head, that would be equal to 157. So there's the discriminant, which tells me there are two solutions. Moving on. So the discriminant for the second equation now in part B. So that would be b squared. Well, what's b in this equation is the value in front of the n terms. So that's 1. So that would be 1 squared minus 4ac. So that would be 1 minus 20 times 4 is minus 80, or negative 79. Well, if we have a negative discriminant, that means we have 0 solutions. And you might have seen me, I like to abbreviate solutions. This is something I learned from one of my chemistry teachers way back. Solutions is a long word. Mathematicians don't like to write, or chemists or physicists don't write long words that you have to write over and over and over again. So I learned to abbreviate solutions like that, and you can too. And the last example, the discriminant is going to be negative 6 squared, so b squared, negative 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 9, times c, which is 1. So that would be 36 minus 4 times 9 times 1 is negative 36, so the discriminant is equal to 0, which means that there is one possible solution.